Welcome to All in Yellow,
the official Norwich City podcast.
So who better to join us for the very first episode of the All in Yellow podcast? It is none other than the head coach himself, Daniel Farke. Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thanks a lot. Good evening.
So we're going to take it right back to the very beginning to start with. Just tell us your earliest memories of enjoying football and playing football and knowing that you wanted to get into the sport.
Oh, sadly, it's a long time ago already. Yes, more or less like each and every child during this time. So I always enjoyed to play football. So my parents kept telling me that I was able to play football before I started running and walking anyhow. So and also like, yeah, my family was always unbelievably interested. My grandfather was quite a famous football player. My father played football as well, and yeah, for that quite naturally. So they put lots of pressure on me and also my parents. So my mother kept telling me first visit in the hospital of my grandfather, she expected him to come around with some flowers, but he brought the football. So there was lots of pressure.
No pressure, yeah.
And she was telling me I was so hopeful that the kid at least could play a little bit. Yeah. So I was capable to play a bit. So for that, not too bad. And yeah, so it was quite normal that I found my way into football.
Who did your grandfather play for then?
He played for several teams, and one most famous team, perhaps Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah,
was also pretty close to the German national team, and yeah, it was a bit different times because it was not that professional, and you couldn't earn that much money. But yeah, it was quite normal that then my father was also unbelievably interested, and yeah, so for that I had to start playing football. Otherwise, my mother would have had some problems.
Well, I've learned something there, Alice. I must plead my ignorance. I didn't know you had such a rich football heritage, Daniel.
Very much in the family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you then grow up as a Borussia Dortmund fan because of the connection?
In general, so I was influenced by several clubs. So my family naturally was always like a supporter of Bayern Munich as well, and also some relationships because the chairman of Bayern Munich, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, who was also a quite famous football player, came out of the city. I worked for Lippstadt later on, so there was quite a strong relationship as well. And yeah, quite obviously, I worked for Borussia Dortmund, and my grandfather played there, so I grew up perhaps 60 miles away. So of course there were strong connections. So with these two clubs, especially, and not the worst clubs in Germany, and was a good time.
Wow, amazing family.
Am I right in saying that as a young player you knew where the goal was? I think is that fair to say?
Yes, that's right. I was a striker, more or less during my whole life, and yes, I would label me more like really like a typical box striker who wants to have the ball close to the goal and was greedy to score goals, also to keep the ball and yeah, perhaps a bit because technically I was definitely all right, and I also knew how to score some goals. My biggest problem was the speed. Anyhow, I think I mentioned it at one point. So I was probably the slowest striker in the whole Western Europe.
Sure
so that was always the limit then for me to play on the top class level. So I played several years as a professional football player, but just always on the level 3rd tier, 4th tier. And that was more like my speed was then anyhow the factor that limit my game. But I like to score, that's definitely for sure.
Would Daniel Farke fit into a Daniel Farke team if you were to pick that team?
I'm not sure. The rumors was always like I was not so interested in running and pressing against the ball. I thought I did, but my coaches never did. So
they
it's
were
more
harsh.
Like, yeah, and also my teammates thought it was more like I waited till they passed me the ball over. I put it out of 2 yards with a little tap in, and then celebrate. Anyhow, it was more like this type of guy. But yeah, in general, so I always liked also to think about the game a bit like a coach, also a lot in tactical terms. Was also quite often anyhow, yeah, a bit in the leading group of a team, like wearing the captain armband and whatever. So not always unbelievably easy. So I had also my own head, and when I think about some things what I've done when I was 20, 22. Would say, oh, I wouldn't like to see this as a coach anyhow, but yeah, sometimes it also helps to have more understanding than for the players in our times, and definitely a good education also for myself.
What did you enjoy most about playing?
The most enjoyable of course, we all like to play the game and also to be there with a win. But the most enjoyable moments were more or less in the dressing room. So to be together with my teammates and to have fun together. And quite often you're together with a group of 20 players, and they're all, of course, different, also from different backgrounds, also different knowledge and education anyhow, but it's more or less like you see the game and the topic football more or less with the same eyes, and when someone speaks about this, all 20 lads know exactly what the guy is speaking about, and they understand the humor, they understand the jokes, and I think this camaraderie is more or less like what you will miss most after your career. And this is also what I always tell my players, that you should also enjoy to be together with the teammates, not to be too selfish and just think too much about yourself. So enjoy also like this togetherness and the spirit in the dressing room. And I have to say, so after retiring, this is even more than the work on the training pitch, and especially much more than the work during preseason when you have to run around the lakes and something like this. And this is always a bit tricky, but to be together with lads who see the world and also the game with the same eyes, this is what you will miss after your career. And perhaps also one of the reasons then I became a coach, if I'm honest.
Did you know you always wanted to be a coach? So how did your kind of retirement from playing come about? Was it through injury?
No, I think it was in the age of 31. And like I mentioned, I've always played on this level, third, fourth tier. Also as a professional football player, but it was more or less clear. So with 31, I wouldn't start then the big career and then to be there with many Champions League appearances. So it's more like, of course I could have played further on, but I then had the offer in order to switch the sides and to work also as a full-time professional on the other side as a sporting director and as a head coach. And I thought, okay, I don't have this big career with 500 appearances for Bayern Munich or 100 caps for Germany. So it's more like, when I want to be good in this job, I have to start a bit earlier, and I have to work a bit earlier on my reputation than, for example, a player who has many appearances for the German national squad. So for that, it was more like a decision of the head right now also to start, because I've seen on this level, third and fourth tier in Germany, professional, half professional level, more or less everything. And instead of playing 3 or 4 more years, I then decided to start the other career. And right now I have to say, although of course you miss then also playing with your teammates, it was definitely not the worst choice. That's definitely.
Did you have to learn to look at the game differently? Because, as a young footballer, certainly as a kid, you'd have run out there with the ball and just had a great time. At what age did you start kind of looking at the game with a slightly more analytical eye and thinking, right, there's a reason we're winning or losing here, and what can we change to make sure we win and lose?
I always try to be there with an analytical view on the game, even as a player. So I was staying humble, but I thought I was quite at least a football intelligent player, and that's why I was also sometimes difficult for my coaches, because I asked questions and I wanted not just to stay on the surface, a bit more to watch a bit under the topics, but I always have to be honest. And I said, so I never wanted to become a coach, because I know exactly how the bloody players feel in the dressing room, and the jokes are there, and I didn't want to rely on each and every day success. And you have to rely that the lads go into the direction you want to lead them, and I never want to work on such a short-term period. So actually, my plan was more or less like to work a bit more strategically, more in the background, more like a sporting director who can also work a bit more into his horizons, a bit more on larger periods, instead of, okay, I want to have to win the next game. And for that, I never was interested really to work as a head coach. But meanwhile, I got the feeling it's quite a good basement situation in order to become a coach, because then I experienced also so many highly motivated coaches who were more after their own career and wants to take the next step and the next step and the next step. I thought this attitude, no, I don't want to be a successful football coach. I want to be famous as a coach and don't want to be in the spotlight. Helped me a bit like to take the next steps. And I have to say, so in order to improve as a coach, I was never anyhow scared to take risks or scared to take also difficult challenges or tasks. And I think it was definitely a good situation in order to build my career. And meanwhile, my view has changed completely. I'm really full of my heart. I'm really a head coach, and I really enjoy to play with these young lads. Although it's still sometimes tricky to keep them all happy and to go with them in the same direction. But I'm really enjoying it.
Were there any coaches in particular that you really admired and you looked to try and learn how they were learning the ropes for your development?
I think you don't have a proper idol or something like this, and it's more like you try to take bits and pieces from each and every coach, even from my coaches who were perhaps not that well known in world football, but you always realize, okay, this is a topic you would do this exactly in the same way, but you also learn out of the negative examples as well, and you think, no, if you would be in this role, you would do it completely different. Once you are then working this role, you also understand why a head coach is sometimes judging things in a bit different way. But I never had really a role model in these terms. If I have to name one person who has influenced me, it would be a pretty famous coach in Germany. His name was Ottmar Hitzfeld. I'm not sure if he's still known here on this level, but he was unbelievably successful with Borussia Dortmund. He won as the first coach in years there the title, but also the Champions League. He won with Bayern Munich the Champions League and also the title. And he was slightly different times. He was perhaps not that such a tactical genius, but in terms of leading a group, in terms of man management, also in terms of style and class, he influenced me a lot. And it's even nowadays. Sometimes when I'm there in a tricky period or tricky situation, I find myself sometimes asking me, okay, in this situation, how would Ottmar Hitzfeld have done in such a situation? And he was quite a big influence, if I have to say.
It's interesting you talk about that man management. People often forget that footballers aren't robots, and anything could have happened to them during the week leading up to a game in their personal lives. Anything could be going on, and you've either got to put an arm around or encourage them. And have you found that a challenge, or is that something you relish doing?
If I'm honest, I always thought it would be like this, that 70-80% of this job is man management and to lead a group. Because you can have unbelievable tactical knowledge, you can have great experience as a player. It's a completely different job. It always helps when you have played on a top level. But sometimes when you, I think this is also one of the reasons why the best footballers in history were quite rarely then also the best coaches in history. It's more like because when you are Lionel Messi, you don't need any explanations, and you don't need to train, and you don't need to be there and doubt yourself anyhow, because you can do whatever you want on the training pitch. But when you also got the feeling, okay, you were on the bench sometimes as a player, or you struggle to reach your limit, you also have understanding then for a player who is not there in his full rhythm or not full of confidence, and you go through difficult periods. Let's be honest, Lionel Messi, from the age from 18 to 32, he never went through a difficult period. You can't teach him football because he's the best player in the world, and for that, I think it helps sometimes when you have played on a professional level, because without having played on a professional level, I think I would also struggle then to have a feeling for my players, how they feel in this situation when the pressure is on them, and they need to fight for the next contract, and there's also pressure from the agents and the families. But you still have this feeling, okay, they are human beings, and you lead a group of people and not a group of robots. And let's be honest, you try to focus a group of 30 players in order to win football games, and in order to be successful, in order to go into the same direction. But they are also competitors for the next contracts.
And they're young lads as well, right?
Yes, definitely competitors for the next for their spot in the starting lineup. And nowadays, just 11 players can be in the starting lineup, and from this 11, quite often just 8 finish a game, and from this 8, 2 or 3 think they're not praised enough by the coach, or 2 or 3 think they are playing in the wrong position. Let's be honest, from this group of 30 players, you just have 2 or 3 players who are really happy in this situation, and all the others are in between yeah, the coach is all right, or till they want to bite me in the neck. So that's a reality anyhow. And you have to focus and to lead this group in order to go into the same direction.
How do you do that though? Because obviously you can't keep every player happy. You say the players that are playing week in, week out are naturally going to be really happy. But how do you keep happy the fringe players, or potentially, obviously, we've seen the amazing work done with the loan system here. How do you keep happy the players that aren't in your current plans right now?
It's difficult, and if I'm honest, you also have to go a bit away from keeping everyone happy. The most important topic is to be absolutely honest, and also like not to let your level of standard and demands drop, and you have the same levels for each and every player. And also when you think there was a poor performance in training or in the game, to tell them. Also quite honest, or when I'm not happy, to tell them. Also not to be afraid of that they're not picked when they're not good enough in training. And it's important to be honest, especially in the dressing rooms. But on the other hand, also not to lose the nerves when we lose a game or there's some criticism, and then to be over emotional and punish a player just because he deserves. I think it's important to protect the group of players in public, because there's so much in the spotlight, and there's so much pressure also on them. I think it's quite important to protect them in public, to be there for them in public, but in the dressing room, I don't like vanity, and there to be unbelievably honest. And
I'll jump in there if I may, Daniel, because recently I guess you broke away from that a little bit, and were perhaps publicly a little bit critical of some players who'd had interest from outside, from other clubs, and weren't performing as you'd like in training during the week. And you sort of broke from that, protect them entirely in public, and actually said, you know what, I'm not getting what I want out of these guys. What made you make that decision?
Well, I'm not out for winning the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm out for winning football games and bringing success to this club. And when I got the feeling I have to do this, I do this. And my players know that I do this pretty rarely, because my first reaction is always like, when I have to criticize something, I do this under four eyes, even not within the group, because it's the players are proud and their dignity, and it's quite important to speak with them under four eyes if there is something they have to improve. But if this doesn't help, then you have to do it in the group, but internally. That's quite important, because this helps then also to put some pressure on them. And but if this doesn't help, then the last bullet is then also like to speak in public, because then you want to provoke sometimes a reaction. And if this doesn't work, let's be honest, you have to get rid of this player. So that's definitely for sure. So it's not like you want to be this most loved guy in the dressing room, or that the players want to go on holiday each and every day. I think I've got quite a good relationship to all of them, because they know that I care for them. And if I have to leave a player out, believe me, no one has more sleepless nights than I do, or if I have to criticize a player. No one has more sleepless nights than I do, and is suffering more. And this is what is also drying in this job. It's difficult to disappoint players. It's difficult to disappoint human beings, because I always want to have them happy, and especially when I got the feeling they deserve some credit. I can't always give this because I've got need to lead a group of 30 players. But if then sometimes I got the feeling, okay, you have to use this bullet anyhow because someone is not leaving his heart on the pitch or is doing something against the group. Just in these two rare occasions, I also have to criticize them sometimes in public in order to provoke a reaction. And thank God. So I'll be honest. So I have had this periods with many players, even with players I loved a lot. When I think about James Maddison, there was also the moment I have to criticize him a bit to help him growing up in his development. I had this also with when I think about our Murphys, for example, or some other players who sadly have left the club. So sometimes at any point you have to criticize them a bit as well, because the world is not always sunshine and life is not always sunshine. So sometimes you also have to remind them that it's not like we're living in life in a pretty privileged role, and sometimes you have to remind them.
Did you have many experiences when you were playing, when you had a coach criticize you, and how did that make you feel? I guess it's interesting, having played the game and now coach as well, you know how it feels from both ends.
Yes, but of course, so as a player, you always judge it in a pretty personal way and individual way, and also too emotional, and you think the coach don't like me, and I was also this player. So when I didn't have the complete trust of a coach anyhow, then I couldn't be at my best. When I knew as a striker, for example, if I haven't scored after 50 minutes, then the flag goes up and I will be substitute. You could leave me even in the start of the game on the bench because I needed this trust. But meanwhile, I judge also these decisions with a different eye, and it's also like I try to speak pretty honest with my players about this topic, because it's not like the coach don't like you or the coach doesn't want to help you. No, it's completely the other way around. So each and every coach wants always to pick the best players who are there with the biggest success for the team. But you learn more to think about the team and the success of the team than just to think about yourself. That's what you have to do a little bit as a player. And I try to give my experience and also my recommendations a bit more to my players, that they don't do the same mistake that I did in misjudging some of these decisions. And I have to say, I've got a really, really nice group of lads, and it's really a joy to work with them each and every day.
I've heard Stuart Webber talk a lot about culture, and it's something that extends beyond, just the first team setup across the academy into the Carrow Road offices as well. It's a huge thing at Norwich City, and that is, the culture of, it's not just your philosophy that you developed on the pitch, but your recruitment strategies. You've got to bring in the right kind of person that fits in, that respects everyone who's got a job to do around the football club, that respects the common goal of having a successful team. And sometimes that might mean that they're not involved for a couple of weeks. How big a part of your recruitment strategy has that been?
It's quite important. So first of all, we're not just signing players, we're signing human beings, and we take lots of time in order to sort out that we sign the right characters. That's quite important. And it also helped that I have worked in the sporting director role, that I'm not just addicted to anyhow to survive the next week as a head coach. I always see the bigger picture and want to develop as a club, and want to develop the club and help the club developing. So it was also like when I signed my contract here, it was more like one of my first questions was, what is a philosophy in terms of playing? And the answer was more like, Stuart was also quite new. We have to create a philosophy. So it's more like the philosophy is being successful. But how? How do we want to play? We have to create a philosophy. Okay, and the next question was
and it takes time.
Yes, and the next question was also like, on which values do we want to work? I want to be successful. But in which way? His answer was more like, so far, there was just one claim: to be successful. It doesn't matter if you train 3 times a day, or if you just rest the whole week on the sofa and you win the game. The only thing that matters is to win the next game. And it is sometimes a bit like this in football, but I don't think it helps in the mid and long term. So you have to create a special philosophy in terms of playing, but also in terms of values, how you want to work, and how the values you want to stand for. And this is also like, on the mid and the long term, you also can lean on this cornerstones and on this values. And I think that's quite important to do this in this way, because you can always have an unlucky period, and also a period with a few losses and some injury problems, or you don't have the game luck. So it's quite important that you then stick to your values and stick to your philosophy. And this is what we try to implement a bit in the group, and for us a quite important topic.
When you first joined Norwich, did you see that there was quite a lot of rebuilding that needed doing? Did you want to sort of start a fresh slate with Norwich? Did you think there was a lot of work that needed doing right from the start? Yes,
it was a big challenge. And if I'm honest, also one of the reasons I wanted to sign for this club, because for me it was the biggest challenge. And if I'm honest, I could have had easier jobs. It was also at this time I was, was still staying humble, but there were still some perhaps easier opportunities in Germany, for example, as a native speaker. Mm-hmm. But I got the feeling, so to go abroad to work not as a native speaker, I was signed as a first not UK head coach of the history, and then to work for such a club who had such a big history, but also for such an emotional club. So 120 miles around, there was no other Premier League club, or also on championship level, there is another club, but not on this level like we are. And it's unbelievable emotional. The stadium is always full, and if we win a game, then we think, okay, we fight right now for the Premier League title and we fight for Europe. And if we lose a game, then the world goes down. So to work for such an emotional club, and also in a situation was more or less like a fresh start, but under unbelievable financial pressure. We needed to rely on our youth and our academy. We need to implement a special style of playing, also a special style of how we want to work. We had a proper group of players that even in the first year, great players, but if we're pretty honest, so our group was a bit too old and didn't really fit to our style, how we wanted to go forward. And we need also to sell some of our best players. When I think about my first season during preseason, we had great players like Johnny Howson, for example, Graham Jones. I like them a lot as players, but we need to sell them. Or the Murphys, especially Jacob Murphy, during preseason, we all had to sell them because the financial pressure was so high. And
did you get any resistance from those senior players when you came in and said, "Look, lads, I'm sorry, you're not going to fit in with the plan that we've got, the vision that we've got"? Did they make it easy for you?
They made it easy for me, and I was even pleased with this group of players. And it was then sad because I had to take some really unbelievably strict and harsh decisions, and I didn't like this because we had to split ways from some players where I think when there would have been a chance to work with them 5 years ago when they were a bit younger and would be a dream to work with them because they were great lads, great professionals, great football players. But if I'm honest, at this time, a bit like already sometimes running up the hill and you don't realize this as a player. So I was the same. So when I came into my 30s, so I wasn't the quickest anymore. I couldn't run that much. So also like the fire was perhaps not burning that much, but you don't realize this as a player. But then the coach has to take sometimes harsh decisions because we need a good split out of experienced players who lead the group, but also fresh energy and players who still want to prove the point. So just with players in the age of 35 who are just a bit more interested. Okay, I want to sign the last good contract or something like this. You can't achieve something special. And although this were great football players and great lads, it was then sometimes tricky to have these decisions, but I have to say, so they handled it in a top-class way. And I have to say, even with the players, I had to take some harsh decisions. I was pretty grateful and thankful that they accepted it also in the way they did.
Yeah, and I guess you can't be too sentimental. It is football, it's results-based, as we all know. But you talk about harsh decisions. What would you say was the harshest or most difficult decision you had to make in relation to any of the players that you had to let go?
To be honest, each and every decision is unbelievably difficult. And when you have to say goodbye to a young player who is full of hope and I think he has the quality and also like the right to develop and to give some time. And you think, okay, it's this step right now is a bit too quick for him, and he has to take 2 steps back anyhow, and to disappoint him because you think, okay, at the moment he doesn't have the quality in order to help us. It's then of course sometimes a bit tricky, and you're disappointed. But also I had some great lads in the first year when I came here. Stephen Naismith was an unbelievable professional, great lad, unbelievable experience. Yeah, but sadly in his position I had to support, because it was my great feeling that I have to support James Maddison a bit more. And it paid off in the end. That did
pay off just a bit.
Yeah, it was unbelievably tough because Stephen was a great lad, a great football player. Or even our club captain Russell Martin, great lad, great servant, ambassador for the club legend. He helped me a lot. So even in my first days, he said, "Listen, when you need anything or whatever," even when he was not playing, he lead the group in a top class way. But then to disappoint him, not to play him each and every game, and to say, okay, listen, perhaps we right now play in this role a guy like Ben Godfrey or Christoph Zimmermann. Was unbelievably difficult because they were great lads and great football players. Or for example, Wes Houlihan. So what a player he was.
Yeah, if he was 10 years younger.
Yeah, he totally fit to my style. And even in this age of, he was 33, 34, he could still make the difference. But I would say just in the end of the game, 20, 30 minutes, and then not to start him, or sometimes I had to substitute him. And even in this age, he was unbelievably greedy to play, and he was so disappointed anyhow when I substitute him, or sometimes when he was on the bench and I called him. So it didn't take 10 seconds, and he was standing next to me and couldn't wait to come in. It was great to see him, and he was so much my player anyhow of how I want to play. Yeah, sadly not. It was a bit like already in this age where sadly, although he still had the quality to produce magic, but not in each and every game, not over 90 minutes. was sometimes difficult anyhow. And then, but then to find the right balance, to go there with class and with style, and also try to give them the goodbye that they deserve. Also like to balance it out with the situation you have to take with them. Is always unbelievably difficult. And I hope that once they look back to this that they say, okay, listen, was sometimes also a difficult period for me, but it was definitely all right how we were treated, and I hope we find the right decisions.
Do you ever worry about, I mean, you know, Russell Martin and Wes Hoolahan, these are guys who will remain Norwich City legends, you know, forever. Do you ever worry about the fans' feedback when, you know, you've been here for what, a year, I think, when Russ left, barely that? You know, do you worry about how the fans go, hang on a minute, mate, you've just turned up and got rid of a couple of our legends here. Do you ever worry about that, or you know what, I've got a vision and I'm sticking with it?
No, you can't worry too much about this because you know how it is. So after 3 games, everyone wants to build a statue, and then you lose next 2 games, and Rotten Tomatoes are flying. That's quite normal. You can't be too addicted to public opinions. You have to stick to your beliefs, and you have to do what you try to do. But I also try to do everything in the name of the club and what is right for the club, not like what is right to my idea, because I always got the feeling the club is bigger than the head coach, the club is bigger than the owner, the club is bigger than the chairman, the club is bigger than each and every player or staff member. The club belongs to the people and the supporters, and you have to do it in the name of the club and in the name of the people, but without just trying to make sure that everyone is singing your name. You have to do it in the interest of the club, and this is quite important, but also to do the style, because I didn't came here and say, listen, right now everything what you've done before though was wrong, and right now I know have the solution. You always have to be unbelievably respectful, because Norwich has had great times, and even I was praised a lot for promotion anyhow, and got lots of credit and lots of applause when I said, listen, they've done it even before. So it's not I'm not the first head coach who was able to promote to the Premier League, so I was not too carried away as well. So I'm always full of respect what has happened in the history of the club. I think it's quite important also when you want to lead the club forward, then also to value a little bit what the club has done in the past.
So you talked about losing players such as James Maddison. In your first season in charge, you finished 14th in the table. Angus Gunn was in goal, on loan from Manchester City at the time, and it was a good squad. Like, where did you see that things were really starting to mould to your philosophy?
To be honest, I also enjoyed the first season, because it was, of course, difficult. Yeah, because we had in the beginning a few players who didn't want to be here, but they had great contracts and were a lot of money. It was a bit difficult. Then we had to bring some fresh energy and some young lads in, and then also during pre-season, yeah, we had to sell 3 of our best players with Johnny Howson, Graham Dorrance, and also Jacob Murphy. Then we had during this first season, during pre-season, 2 big contact injuries with Tim Klose, an unbelievably important player for me. He was out for several months. Alex Pritchard was out. He missed the first 20 games, and when he came back in, he made the difference for us, scored goals, and after 4 or 5 games, we had to sell him as well, because Huddersfield wanted to sign him, and we sold him for double figures. We had to do this because there was so much financial pressure on the club, and it was a difficult period. And for that, I still had an unbelievable proper group of lads, and I liked our first season. Yeah, of course, when you compare this then with the big Norwich City seasons when we played on Premier League level, when we were even beating Bayern Munich 30 years ago. When you compare this as a lifelong Norwich City supporter, it's never good enough. And to finish in mid-table, and it's never good on championship level, it's never good enough then for a lifelong Norwich City supporter. But I think in terms of having a solid base to build on, it was a solid first season, because sometimes when you have to renew the squad, when you have so much financial pressure, when you have to bring so many young lads in, when you have so many injuries, when you have to sell during a season so many players, you can be in danger of relegation. And this happened to several clubs also since I was here, and for that we were actually never in real danger of relegation during this first year. There was a period around Christmas. It was a bit tricky when we lost a few games, but we were always a bit closer to the playoffs than in comparison to the relegation ranks. For that, it was even a solid first season. We had a club record of clean sheets and several good things to achieve, and we built it on this also for the second and the third year. And I think although it was not in terms of the big picture of Norwich City, because it was just a mid-table finish, it was not a great year in the history of Norwich City, but quite important year.
So
in
it's a
terms
building
of our
block.
Yeah,
project.
you're building your foundations. So as for the second season, obviously it was a bit of a slow start. Did you at any point feel like you were under any pressure from the fans or even from the board, or was it very much a case of a longer term plan, you were just getting started?
No, on this level, you're always under pressure. So you even the best coach in the world, even Jürgen Klopp won the title last season. He won the Champions League before. If you then lose one game, I think it was against Villa, then there are questions and doubts or whatever. This belongs to the business. It's quite normal. When you lose a game, then everyone is doubting you, and that's quite normal. If you can't handle this, then you better shouldn't work in this job. Then you're not strong enough for this job. That's definitely for sure. But I always felt unbelievable trust also from the key people, and also unbelievable trust from our supporters, from the majority of our supporters. And if I'm honest, I didn't expect so much help and so much respect and also so much goodwill in terms of that so many people wanted us to be successful in our style, in our way, and with our principles of playing, also with our values. And of course, when there are so many supporting this, and there are also a few mooners or doubters, that's quite normal. It's football, because there's no black or white, so it's not like a book where you can read, okay, football works in this way, so you don't have to play possession-based football in order to be successful. You can also park the bus. You can just hope for some luck and some set piece and win games, and everyone is also happy, and no one has to love possession-based football and passing football. If you want to say, no, we want to have proper long balls and 4-4-2 and some proper second balls, it's also allowed, and also can also be attractive. But you have to choose in which way you want to go. So you can't be one day like this and the other day like that. So for that, I was also unbelievably grateful and thankful for all the support and also the trust that I had. And I will never forget this.
And you mentioned giving the young players a chance earlier. That's something we've taken an enormous amount of pride in at the club. But I remember Stuart Webber setting out his targets and saying, look, we want to get this many, I can't remember the exact figure, academy players, a certain amount of minutes in the first team. But he was quick to stress, really important, we're not just slinging them on at the end, we're giving them meaningful experience, and we want to get them as a part of this side. How important for the football club is it to give these young players a chance?
We are a self-funding club, and the only self-funding club on this level. And so for that, we have to develop players. We have also to accept if some players develop quicker than we do as a club, at any point we have to sell them. And the biggest problem was in the first 2 years we had to pay for so many sins in the past. And if I'm honest, also Stuart didn't know when he signed the contract that the financial pressure was so much, and me neither. So we expected, of course, that we have to develop players, and we have also to develop young players, but we didn't expect that there was so much financial pressure on the club. And for that, we need to find some solutions. And it will always be that we believe in young players and we want to develop them. But one thing is for sure, I want to win football games. I don't want to give the most minutes away for our academy players. It's more like I don't give away any gifts. I want to win football games. And if I win football games with a 35-year-old, I will play him instead of playing him with the 18-year-old guy. But I'm never scared of playing young players. And when I got the feeling, okay, they're ready to go, I give them also a go. I'm never scared that I think, then the older players are anyhow annoyed and want to work a bit behind the scenes to sack the head coach anyhow or something like this. I think it's important also to be brave in this moment. And each and every club is speaking about the youth as a future. I never heard a coach saying, no, I don't believe in my young players. I don't believe in the academy. Everyone is praising, this will be our future and rely on them. But it's more like how you act is more important. And this is also like what is more important for me, not like to speak too much about how much I trust them, how much I want to develop them or something like this. It's more like how we act as a club and how I act as a coach, and this is quite important.
It's interesting. There was a little bit of concern, and I might have got my timelines wrong here, but I remember Huddersfield, I think, did they get rid of their academy? But it was after Stuart left? I might be completely making that up.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And I think there was a bit of worry that,
Yeah.
you know, that might be something that, you know, might happen here. But instead, the absolute opposite, the Canary Bond and the fans getting behind the new academy building and, you know, an incredible amount of time and investment into the academy.
I don't want to give too much advice to other clubs, or would recommend that our model is always the best for each and every club. So each and every club has to take its own decisions. And there are, of course, some posher clubs who need to present the best players in the world because everyone expects them to sign also some names. And that's also totally okay. But you also have to accept the reality. And our reality is we are a self-funding club. We are a community club. We are a club. We rely on a strong relationship between our players and our supporters, and we need a strong bond within the city. And the best bond and the best relationship is always like if you bring some of your owns through the ranks, and this is what we're trying to do. And for that, it was never an option for us to go a different way, and we had to go and to choose this way. If I'm honest, I also hope one day we are also capable then not to sell our best players. Hopefully we can also buy some players and add some quality, but doesn't mean that we will give away our values, and also that we don't count on our academy anymore. So it's more like it will then help also us to develop the club further on, but we will always rely on developing our young players, and this will also be our way.
Do you think it was the financial situation that the club found itself in when you and when Stuart Webber first joined that put the onus then back on, instead of buying expensive players, developing those stars? Did that play a big part in it?
Yes, definitely, because when you don't have the money, you have to be more creative than other players, and sometimes there is no other option anyhow. But it's not like just to speak about. You have to act, and this is quite important. Not just to speak about like, yeah, the young player will be one day the future of the club, but at first they have to go on 4 different loans, and then at the age of 27, anyhow they are ready to represent our colors. It's important also to trust them as soon as possible, but also to make sure that not just because you're young there's any gift. If you don't have the quality to represent your yellow shirt, and you're not ready to represent this, then it's also not just because you're young and the head coach want to praise for some more minutes or something like this, there is any gift. So I just play players and when they're ready to go. But I have to say, so it's also not up to me, it's also up to the fantastic work of our academy, of our key people there, to work with them, because they have to present them in the perfect possible shape, and then I can pick them. But a lot of work has to do in our academy, and lots of praise goes also to the people who work in our academy.
And obviously, you know, at the moment, like you said, at the moment, if we have a player that hits those heights, someone like Ben Godfrey, who's gone on to Everton, you know, we have to potentially look at selling them. The succession plan is what interests me. You know, I know in the NFL they have what's called a depth chart. I don't know if that's something you guys use, but Stuart's always saying that you guys are always thinking of the next person to slot in. So if someone moves out the top end, you've got that chain below. How far does that go in each position? You know, for all the players, how many backups are you looking at?
Yes, you have to be prepared. You have to be professional, and you need to have many options, and also for different scenarios. Yeah, you never know if you play in the next year, for example, on Premier League level or Championship level. There's also even the first years there was a scenario for League One. We need to do this in order, because we didn't want to go there anyhow. But in order to prepare the club for all scenarios, you have to do this. But of course, you concentrate on the topics that are more likely. And we're also thinking big, so we have proper and good names. Also, like when there is a possibility to sign some players for money, and we also had, for example, on Premier League level last season, we had some players we wanted to sign, but then you have to also to accept the reality that we didn't have the money in order to do this. But we are prepared for this scenario. So whenever there's a chance anyhow to bring quality player in, we try to do this as much as possible. But also the squad depth in terms of our academy, you could fit then in a few years. First view on the market is always a homegrown market, but we also have to have a look abroad, because quite often the homegrown players are too expensive anyhow for self-funding clubs. So you have to be creative. Yeah, sometimes you have to find players in Germany and in Spain, in the Netherlands, in France anyhow, and this of course a bit more tricky because it's more risky. Yeah, because the young lads here, anyhow, they know the league, they know the language, and know the tradition. It's always tricky to bring, for example, a South American guy from the second tier in Spain and like Emi Buendia, but
paid off.
Yes, thank God we did. So,
Yeah.
so it definitely paid off. But you never know. It's always a bit more risky. But sometimes you have to take the risk. And we can't be there with each and every decision right, but we try to be there with as many positive decisions as possible.
Has it felt frustrating at any time for you? You say like you might see a player that you think would work really well in what you're trying to develop here at Norwich City, but you haven't got the funds to necessarily go out and just pay the big bucks for a player that, say, Liverpool or Arsenal or even the likes of, say, Aston Villa or a club that have come up quite recently could do. Has that frustrated you at all?
Yes, absolutely. So it is frustrating, but it has to make sure that you are not influenced too much in your work. When, for example, think about we played last season against Southampton at home, pretty important game, first game after lockdown, and we lost the game 0-3, and we got lots of stick. The players got lots of stick. Of course, my coaching staff, head coach, it's quite normal. Everyone gets lots of stick. We were criticized for. They were more flexible in their style, and they had different scenarios. And it was a game we tried everything. We changed in this game 3 or 4 times the base formation. We have substituted 5 times during the game before Southampton substituted the first time. Anyhow, we tried everything. In the end, we had to accept. Their quality was in the end better. They had players. They brought in Danny Ings, for a player of top quality for, I don't know, 22 million pounds or something like this. And they had a player like Che Adams. I loved him. He scored many goals on championship level. I was interested. We were interested. It was simply not possible for us to sign him. Southampton signed him for whatever, 50 million pounds, and he was striker number 4. He was struggling to make the game day squad anyhow. But we have to compete with this clubs anyhow. And then the players get lots of stick, although they left their heart out on the pitch. They tried everything. And then you have to say it came back down to quality. And this is then also sometimes difficult and frustrating, because I knew this anyhow before. And it's, of course, then frustrating that you can't sign such a player who would have been absolutely important for us. And for a club who is in competition at this moment for us in terms of staying in this league. Just striker number 4 or number 5 or whatever. And then it's sometimes difficult and frustrating, because you got the feeling so we're not fighting with the same tools anyhow. But if you are then too annoyed, then you can't work in this job, or at least not in this job for Norwich City. So we have to go our way. We have to work with our tools, and we have to find some solutions. And this is what we're trying to do.
It's so funny the way different people look at it. So when we beat Man City, the graphic that was going around on social media was the amount we'd spent and what we'd achieved on it.
That's all people want to focus on.
Exactly, and we were being lauded for it. But then you go down the line and results stopped going that way, and it was, I can't believe we only spent this. That's the reason why, and that's obviously the frustration that you have to deal with. And
yes, of course, and to be honest, it's important not to kill the atmosphere, but also not to be naive anyhow. And to be honest, for example, for our Premier League season, it was not about choosing the right communication strategy anyhow, because the only thing that matters are results. And if you tell before the season starts anyhow, it would be a miracle if we stay in this league. I said, it's great to stay humble anyhow, but in the end we will be all right. And then you lose the first game. No, in the end you will be all right. Then you lose the second game. Then you lose the third game. And after the fourth game, I said, listen, if you said we need a miracle, he's not convinced, so that's a wrong strategy. But on the other hand, if I would have told everyone, no, we will be all right, we have such a proper group, anyhow, we win the games, then you lose the first, the third, the second, the third, the fourth game, then everyone said, how can you be that naive? With this quality, you never say this thing. So it's not about communication strategy. It's more like what you choose, and I was never naive. So we started into the season, and we had a pretty experienced goalkeeper squad with Tim Krul, with Ralph Fairman and Michael McGovern. But when I had a look on our field players, Alex Teti has played on Premier League level. No one else. Tim Klose has spent 1 year, but he was out more or less for the whole season. We had so many exciting young players, and everyone was buzzing about the likes of Jamal Lewis and Max Aarons and Ben Godfrey and Emi Buendia and Todd Cantwell, and everyone thought, okay, with these players we can even attack the Premier League and we win the title, and we will fight for Europe. Now it's their first season Premier League level. And even these players, one day they will be definitely all right for this level, but yeah, you have to pay your dues in your first season. And all the others were lads who have never played on this level. The only other guy was Grant Hanley. He has spent some time at Newcastle, but let's be honest, he never really played there properly on this level. And to go into this season, then of course you can be there with highlights. And we try to be to break the odds again and to try to work on another miracle. We tried everything anyhow. But if then not everything goes in your favor, then it's unbelievably difficult with a group of players. Yeah, where just Alex Sette had more or less Premier League experience. And in the end, it came down to quality. And sadly, we were not able to repeat another miracle. Yeah, but hopefully once we are capable one day to return back to this level, then we are a bit better prepared as a club in terms of financial opportunities, in terms of infrastructure, also in terms of the squad. And hopefully we have a squad who has already players who have spent at least 1 or 2 seasons then on Premier League level, and then we will find ourselves in a much more competitive way.
But to have got there in the first place and to have been promoted as the Championship champions with the squad that you had, how amazing did that feel? And to do it at Carrow Road as well.
Yes, it was great because it was also so unexpected, and also in a situation where we had earned more money than probably any other club in Western Europe. Because in the 2 years before, we've sold not just Johnny House, Graham Jones, Alex Pritchard, the Murphy twins, but also James Madison, always key players. And we brought players in from our academy, some young players, some players from Germany. Even in Germany, they never have played on the top level. And with this players were capable not just to promote, but also like to promote with a record season of the club, with nearly 100 points, with nearly 100 goals, with a special brand of football. I was always unbelievably respectful for the achievements in the past and what other coaches and teams have achieved, and to achieve promotion is always unbelievably difficult. But to do this also in this style with a record season, so not many Norwich City teams were able to lift the trophy as champions. And there was also no doubt to do this deserved, and also exactly in our way, with our principles, with our football, with our style, with our own players anyhow. This was remarkable. It was a pretty proud moment. First day after promotion, I thought, oh, we need another miracle, and it will be unbelievably difficult. There will be difficult times, but also it was important also to enjoy this moment, and in order to, because yeah, what these players have achieved, it was so important also for the future of the club, and will be always remembered by them, and we created some history for the club, and this was great.
Did you get to share that with your family as well? Because I know your family live in Germany, don't they? Did they come over and were they here to witness the promotion?
Yes, of course. We are also always quite close with my family, and of course it's always important for the whole family and everyone who's connected. I try to keep my private life a little bit close and keep them a little bit away from all the spotlight anyhow, in order that everyone can lead a normal life, because I don't want to get too carried away when when I'm as a family member, I'm the superstar, or I'm the worst coach ever anyhow, when I have the wrong decision. So for that, I try to keep this always a bit away. But of course, they know what I'm doing, and for that, always they also take part, and as also then they feel all the most that I do, and that's I think also quite important.
Is it difficult at the moment with the travel restrictions and family? I mean, the whole squad, you've got some international players. Must be difficult.
Yes, of course it's difficult at the moment sometimes, because of course you also want to see your parents, for example, who are in my age, also then in an age where they are of course also struggling during these times, also to see people also like to be a bit scared. Of course it would be nice to do this, to be allowed to do this, but I'm also struggling to complain too much, because I'm leading together with all the players such a privileged life, and work in such a great surrounding. I'm blessed and honored to be allowed to work in such a important role for this amazing club, and there are so many people who have to worry much more about their future, have to worry much more about their family. So for that, of course, it's a difficult period of time, but I'm struggling to complain too much about this. So my thoughts are really more like with the people who are really in difficult situations, who work in difficult jobs, who have to worry about their jobs in the future, who have to worry about their financial future anyhow. And for that, my thoughts are a bit more with them, instead of worrying too much about my private situation. I would feel feel really bad if I would complain about my situation, that I have to wait a few more weeks longer to see the people that I want to see anyhow. For that, it is a bit tricky at the moment, but I don't think I have the right to complain too much.
Well, the club kind of jumped into action when this first sort of started, hitting Norfolk, and I know several of your senior players and some of the club's directors were making phone calls to over 70 season ticket holders to start with. That's something really special about this place, isn't it? That connection.
Yes, and that's why I also like this club that much, and I labeled it. You never know, so how long the people want me to stay, and how long I will be allowed to work in this fantastic role, to represent the club and to lead the club in such a privileged role. So I always had the feeling it's a honor, and really I'm blessed to represent this club in this role. I'm blessed to work together with so many amazing people, but that's why I love this club so much, because there's a real bond within the community, the real bond within the city. It's not just about winning games or something like this, or to pretend something. It's more like to make sure that this place and this community is a bit better place. And it's not just about the first team and something this, more like about the community. And this is why I also mentioned several times, it was, I've got a home in Germany, but it will always be my first home here in England. Will always be my second home here in Norwich. Whatever happens in the future, so it could also be that I will work in a different city, perhaps in Germany, in England, wherever. But Norwich will definitely always the place where it's my second home, and there's already a bit yellow blood in my veins, and it's a great club.
Yeah, there's always a feeling, I think, among Norwich fans that you just get us. Do you feel like that as well?
Yes, when we are successful, then everything's okay. And it's also quite normal that not everyone is overly happy when we lose a game. And to be honest, I never take it personal, because it just shows how much everyone cares. And it reminds even the players how much responsibility we have. So I was never out for that everyone praise me wherever on social media. I still feel unbelievable support and trust. And I'm really, really grateful and thankful for that. And I've got lots of credit. I'm really grateful, and I don't take it as a given, especially not in this business. So pretty rarely it's that a head coach is always allowed to fulfill his contract. So I'm working as a coach meanwhile since 12 years, and I was always allowed to fulfill my contract. So
great CV.
They're not many, but it's not like I'm unbelievably proud of myself. I'm more grateful that all the key people in the club thought, okay, I'm doing a solid job anyhow, and that I'm allowed to do this. And for that I really feel honored and grateful.
And how long would you continue doing this job if given the choice? If Stuart said to you, Daniel, you're here as long as you want to be here. That's a tough question.
Yeah, so it's more like it always has to be for all parties also the best. And once I got the feeling, so right now everyone is bored of our way. Okay, it could also be. It's always the same in life and also in football. Yeah, after a while, sometimes you're also bored. So it could also be that at one point then one says, okay, we have dominated right now the games. We're dominating the passing statistics. Right now we want to have proper lads, anyhow, everyone 2 meters tall, anyhow, long ball, and let's go for second balls and proper tackling. One day, perhaps the people want to have a head coach who is on the sideline more like with a track suit and tackling around in the coaching area and shouting at the players and give them a real go. So sometimes you want to have this and this change, and I will then accept this, because that's not me. So I try to represent this club also in my way. I try to work for this club in my way, and as long as I got the feeling, okay, I can help developing this club, then I will definitely do this. And I'll just then also overtake this club when I got the feeling, okay, right now I've done everything, the club is in the right place, and then I will perhaps go also for a different challenge also for myself. Yeah, it could be, but all I have to say, so I don't have a career plan. So I was never out for most money or titles anyhow. And for me, there are other values that are more important, and I want to create history. And sometimes it can be more important to develop a club and to create experiences and also to make the life of people a little bit better than to add a different club who has better opportunities. The 147th title in the career of the club anyhow. So, and you are the 47th coach who is capable to do this. So it's also pretty valuable and pretty affecting, if you can help Norwich, to help also like to achieve the long-term vision to become hopefully one day then also established a Premier League club, and this more or less something I try to work on.
Do you ever envisage yourself going back to Germany and potentially working in the Bundesliga, having that link already?
I had several times the opportunity to do this and never did this, and I choose to work here in England, and this says, I think, a lot about my my attitude. So I really feel blessed that I'm allowed to work here, and because it's the motherland of football, and football has an unbelievable high level in the everyday life of people in Germany. But I got the feelings here it's even a bit more. So I think we are quite similar in terms of football culture in Germany and England. It's quite similar, I would say. But I still feel that the Premier League is the best league in the world. The Championship is the toughest league in the world.
Yes.
And I also got the feeling so that some of the best coaches in the world are working here in England. The best clubs in the world are here. And it's an amazing place to be. That doesn't mean that at any point there, of course, could be that I will also work in Germany, but at the moment, it's definitely the right place to be for me. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So I'm always quite strict and consistent in my decisions. If I would have the feeling that it's not the right place to be, then believe me, I wouldn't be here. And just because I think, okay, I'm on a good contract or something like this, but just about money, then I would come myself. If I got the feeling so I have nothing to give or can't develop the club anymore, I want to do something else, but that's not the case at the moment. I'm totally at the right place at the moment, and we'll see how long it will continue.
It's good to hear.
Do you enjoy doing things like this? Because obviously, when you're out on the pitch on a Saturday and the Barclays when all the stands are giving you that adulation, and it must be an incredible rush, but coming and talking about it so passionately, and it's so engaging.
You don't have to say yes.
You don't have to say yes, but do you enjoy coming and talking so passionately about Norwich?
To be honest, it's just the way that I judge it. If I'm honest, and I'm exactly like with my players. Like I told you, so I'm always honest, and if I'm not out for any compliments or something like this, so you would feel if I don't feel it anyhow and just pretend, because. In this business, there are also many pretenders. If I'm honest, I always will speak about in this way how I see it, how I judge it, and how I feel it. And yeah, of course, right now we're working also in difficult periods without the supporters, and there's no replacement for a win together with our supporters. And if I'm honest, the nicest part of your career is always a playing career, because as a coach, after you won a game, in this moment you always have to think about, okay, right now, which message do I give to the media? Which message do I give in the dressing room? How can I make sure that I also win the next game, or at least don't lose the next game anyhow? As a player, it's always the nicest period of the time. This why I always give the message to my players: come on, enjoy it, enjoy your playing career, because there's never this feeling like during the playing career.
And it's a short career, isn't it?
Yes, definitely, and you have to enjoy this, and you have to enjoy this feeling, because. Yeah, life of a head coach is definitely much more demanding, and you have to take care for so many people. As a player, you just have to care for yourself and to make sure that you're fit and play your part in this business. But as a head coach, you have to think about so many other things, and it's not always enjoyable. But when you win a game and you are successful, then it's also a good feeling. That's definitely for sure.
Something I couldn't help but notice immediately, actually, after we were promoted to the Premier League, is the amount of comparisons that were made between you and Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, there is naturally that German link. I've read you saying that actually your style of play, you wouldn't necessarily look to him in what you would want to, how you would want to mould your side. Did that annoy you at all, being compared to him?
No, because I'm working that long in this business. I always got these questions, because Jürgen Klopp is a world-class coach. He's a German coach and was unbelievably successful. He worked for Borussia Dortmund. I have worked, just for the under 21. But
did you work together? You didn't work together at the same time, did you? No,
it was the first time that we met. Even
really? It was the first
England,
time.
So never before. So I worked during my time in Dortmund pretty close to Thomas Tuchel. Also, you would label perhaps the football of Jürgen Klopp slightly different to our approach anyhow. But of course, he's a world-class coach, and there are so many aspects to admire. Also his man management and how to judge things. He's also a pretty kind and warm-hearted person, but we are slightly different. So he's standing there with a tracksuit and a cap on the touchline. I never do a tracksuit, so he is more like his football is more like labeled like heavy metal football with unbelievable pressing, with unbelievable strength in the center. You would compare us perhaps even a bit more, I don't know, perhaps a bit more with Man City, with possession-based side. So I think there are also differences, but football is not black and white. There are also many similarities, and I always got this question, much more than Jürgen, perhaps, definitely, because he's a world-class coach, and I'm just more or less like still have to prove my point. But in terms of how our career has developed, it's also quite similar, especially in the beginning.
And he said some very kind things about you and Norwich last season, actually, about how he saw that there was a longer term plan that you were trying to impose, and with the way that the whole financial situation. Did that mean much to you to hear those words from him?
Yes, when the best coach in the world praise you anyhow for what we've done, also for our football, what we've done as a football club, is always something that you can be proud of. I think it's also even more important when you get these compliments also on the four eyes. And I don't like to speak about our relationship too much because I always hate it when some younger coaches or not that successful coaches speak about their relationship to the best coaches in the world, because it's always like fishing for compliments. Oh, I'm in contact with Jürgen Klopp or Pep Guardiola. We send some messages anyhow. So I never liked coaches who are then proud. Oh, I'm allowed to send some messages for that. I don't want to speak too much about our private conversations, but we are in touch a lot. And when he repeats also his pretty complimentary words, even in higher praise than on a personal level, it feels really good. And for that, I know that we have an admirer with Jürgen, and he looks a lot to Norwich, because also some of his younger players, or he worked at Mainz 05, or even in Dortmund with some of my players, more like they were on under 21 level. I know that he follows Norwich quite closely. It's always a good feeling, but not just Jürgen. So also with like Pep or something like this. So it's quite good when this world-class coaches know what Norwich is doing. And this was also, I think, one of our big claims that, world football takes notice out of Norwich, like what we did 30 years ago when we were able to beat Bayern Munich. You got the feeling right now world football knows, meanwhile, okay, what we're standing for, our principles, and that's what we're trying to improve and to force even a bit more, and hopefully we can do this in the future as well.
How much did that win over City mean then last season? Obviously, you talk about Pep Guardiola and what you think of him. That must have been an amazing moment in your career.
Yes, but I was not that proud for me, because I don't judge football like chess between two coaches. So it's more like I am there in order to help my lads to be successful. And it was not like Pep Guardiola against Daniel Farke. It was more like unbelievable strong world-class Man City side. At this moment, they were unbeaten for 7 months or something like this. And we were the promoted team who hasn't spent any money, and we were able to beat them. And of course, we need also a bit luck in this game, but we deserve to beat them, because there was an outstanding performance. And I was pretty proud of what my players did, and also what we did as a club, because it was one of the highlights also in the history of Norwich City. And once you were in the stadium, so the atmosphere was buzzing, and it was a pretty special atmosphere. And this was an atmosphere, I think each and every supporter who was allowed to be there in the stadium will also think about even in 30, 40, 50 years. And it was amazing. I knew, come on, let's not overinterpret it. That's just because we're able to beat them, we still need a miracle to stay in this league. I was far away from overinterpreting this, but we're pretty happy that we're able to create such a proud moment in the history of Norwich City, and also quite important moment in order that world football took notice of what we're doing.
How much are you missing the fans? That you said that night, the atmosphere was incredible. We've had 2 or 3 opportunities this season already where the roof would have come off at Carrow Road. You must be missing that so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Our late goal. So when we scored the late winner, so when I think about Mario Frančić free kick, or the strike, or anyhow, then more like Marco Stiepermann's goal in the last game. So in a game between 2 top sides to score a late winner, anyhow, Carrow Road would have been exploded. But we play football for fans, and it still feels strange, but you also got the feeling, so it's a responsibility right now to keep going, to make sure that football survives, and we can keep going, and the clubs are still there. So for that, we also need to cheer the supporters even at home a little bit up when they're not in the happiest period of life at the moment during this worst pandemic since ages. And I think we also have the responsibility to try to cheer them up. Of course, it's not the same. It's also difficult anyhow to really enjoy these feelings when you have great wins. But I think we have to do this at the moment, and hopefully they can return pretty soon.
And football is such a lifeline for a lot of people, isn't it? It is such a big part of their lives. So how important was it for you that football came back after Project Restart? Because there was a long time without any sport, really. It's never been more important than now, has it?
I agree. So it still feels strange, and also in the beginning, everyone was perhaps even a bit scared or not really like fully focused on the game because so many other things were also like in the head. But it's so important that we go step by step back to normality. And meanwhile, playing football games is normality. No one is scared at the moment because the stadiums, also the training ground, seems, at least at the moment, some of the safest place to go. And hopefully also like pretty soon then also it's possible to get the supporters back so that we step by step go back to normality, and we're all looking forward to have this again.
And this season at the minute, it's all going, I don't want to curse it, but it's going very, very well. At the time of us sitting here talking now, we're third in the league. How do you assess the start to the season so far?
Definitely a good situation to build on because after 11 games to be in a top position is quite good. You need a good start. Then there's a main part of the season where the table is made, and this main part you also have to be good, and then you need a strong finish during the crunch time period. But many teams are struggling after relegation. And since I came here to England, so meanwhile it's my 4th year, not one club after relegation from Premier League finished in direct promotion ranks. And just from the 9 clubs who were relegated, just one club, Fulham in last season, was able to promote back straight away by using the playoffs. And let's be honest, they had to fight till the last second during their playoff half final, and also during the final. They were in the end even a bit lucky to return back. So it says a lot about the size of the task. If 0 out of 9 go back in direct promotion ranks, and just 1 out of 9 go back by using the playoffs. And there are also some relegated clubs like Bournemouth who have spent, perhaps on the bigger picture, we are the bigger club in comparison to Bournemouth, but they have spent year after year on Premier League level. The same with Watford. They have spent year after year. So they still start games with starting lineups with more than 1,000 Premier League games. It's difficult to be competitive. And even sides like Swansea, like Brentford, who have built their clubs and their teams more or less from year to year. It's so difficult, and many clubs were struggling more or less on the wrong end of the table. And like clubs like Hull City, like Sunderland, they're not even allowed to play on this level anymore. Huddersfield, Stoke, straight away after relegation, they were in danger and fear of relegation. And for that, the first topic is you have to make sure that you're never in danger of relegation, then to be as close as possible in a good position. And then right now we seem to be that we have sorted out the hangover. It's not a guarantee that we will finish in the top position, but definitely we are in a good position to build on.
And not to get ahead of ourselves, but if we do go up this season, what would you do differently to when we came down? Have you learned anything from that season in the Premier League? Are there things that you would do differently or ways you'd adjust?
First of all, we would be in a completely different situation as a club, and this would be the main topic. Because I wouldn't label it. We have learned too many lessons. The teams after promotion who are quite often solid in the first year are the teams who are promoted by relying on their defense. It was 30 years ago. It's nowadays it will be the same in 30 years in all countries. And the teams who are promoted by an unbelievable offense, they are quite often struggling, because we are praised so much for offensive style anyhow. After promotion, Chris was Timo Pukki was the best player, best goal scorer. Marcus Stiepermann, the best number 10. Emi Buendia, the best winger. Owen Landers, unstoppable anyhow. When these lads have to play on Premier League level, it's not that outstanding anymore. And then you're sometimes struggling in order to bring your offensive style. And sometimes the teams who are relying on the good defense, they find it easier to survive in the first year. If you then survive as an offensive team, you find it easier to to become an established Premier League side. The teams who survive just relying on parking the bus and sitting deep when the euphorism is way after the first year back in Premier League level. After you have to take the next step, then they are struggling even a bit more. So for that, we knew all this, that we would struggle a bit. So we didn't have, if you're honest, enough quality in order to stay there. We didn't have enough experience. We didn't have the style to be likely to be successful. We knew all this. There would have been just one opportunity to spend money. Yeah, but we use in this moment to pay for the sins in the past. We could have said, listen, we don't pay. We just put it a bit more away. We go for it. We sign a player for 7-8 million pounds. We don't pay for the sins in the past. We don't sort our financial problems out. We put it a bit in the future and hope and pray that we stay in this league. We could have said, okay, we don't invest in the infrastructure. We put this a little bit away and hope and pray that we stay on Premier League level. But we said, no, we sort right now our financial problems out. We invest in the infrastructure. And we use this also to extend the contracts of our young prospects to be then able to sell them, for example, like Ben Godfrey, like Jamal Lewis, to keep the young lads running, to keep this club also running on the bigger picture. And if we have to go back, we accept this as a club. But if we then come back to the Premier League, we're in a much better position, because then we don't have to pay for any sins in the past. And we don't have to invest again in infrastructure. Then we have a squad where the players have already Premier League experience, and then we can also invest in players so that we can go also with our style to stay in this league and then to become on the mid and the long term also an established side. Because I was always so full of respect what was achieved in the past. But if we're really honest, quite often it was like we were promoted in the past, and perhaps with relying on our defense, with parking the bus, with our euphorism of promotion, we were able to survive 1 or 2 years. Yeah, but then quite often we were relegated again, and then we were in financial problems, in trouble. We need a few years to come back. Then we came back, relying on the defense anyhow. With all the euphorism, we were able to stay 1 year, but not like that established on the long-term picture. And our claim is more or less like to be a permanent member in this top 25 teams in England. And we want to become a member, established member on Premier League level. And once there is a year when we are relegated, then we want to promote back straight away, so that everyone knows, okay, we play, for us it's natural to play on Premier League level and not like something extraordinary. And we want to develop in this way. And for that, of course, in order to become like this, we need then also, of course, to add more quality, to spend a bit more money also into the squad. But if we could return at any point, we are in a much better position right now, because we are not under financial pressure, and we then have this experience anyhow to do much better. And hopefully we can prove this again.
Stuart always talks about, we're not here forever. We need to leave the football club in a better place for the next people that come in and take it over. And you guys just will not gamble with the future of the football club just to ease some pressure, when you come to the Premier League. That seems to be the message anyway.
Yes, that's also, if I'm honest, it's also was one of the reasons I wanted to stay in the last season, because believe me, everyone in this business recommended, listen, with this squad, without any experience, without any quality, you have no chance. You need a miracle to stay in this Premier League. And then, believe me, everyone told me, each and every coach in Germany, each and every club coach, even on the top level here, on Premier League level, you have to go, you have to ask, you have to cry for more quality. Otherwise, you will have no chance. And of course, I knew, so for the short-term picture, it would have helped me if we would have signed 2 players for 20 million pounds. It would have been possible. Yeah? Like I said, if we would have not paid for the sins in the past, if you would have not invested in the future of the club, if you would have not extended the contracts, if you would have not invested in the infrastructure, would have left myself. Because I know exactly after we lose a few games, everyone is more or less like speaking about, okay, he's not the perfect job. So, and everyone said, listen, no one will be grateful anyhow. But I got the feeling, so if there is one coach on this level, also with some credit in the bank, who backs also the club in this approach, it was me, because I thought, okay, he has done it once before, so he has created a miracle by promoting with such young lads without any money from the Championship to the Premier League. If one coach is there and has this credit to back this club, it's me and Danube. So if we relegate, I will get lots of punishment and lots of sick, and I can handle this. I'm old enough for this. But I got the feeling if I leave right now and say, listen, under these circumstances, I make my life easier. I choose a different club here in England or in Germany. Right now, I don't want to risk my reputation or whatever. I could have gone in this way, and believe in there were lots of offers in this moment. Yeah, because when you're successful, then you're always in this spotlight. So even the agents, they recommend it anyhow. So it's more like you have to leave right now because it can't be better. You've done so amazing anyhow. Go for and work under different circumstances. But I wanted to leave the club in a better situation than I found the club. And for me, it was so important to support this club also with these decisions. Yeah, to invest in the infrastructure, to pay for the sins in the past, also to make sure once we are relegated, then we have the chance to go back, to come back then in a stronger place. And if I do this and I can then overhand one day the club in a much better place than he was, then I would be happy and was saying, listen, then hopefully everyone would say, okay, he's done a solid job anyhow, and I would be then also like quite content with my job. And this is more or less my challenge then to overgive also like this responsible role one day when the club is in a much better and much more balanced and much more firm way instead of that I found the club.
And then we'll build the statue.
100%. Were you surprised by the situation the club was in when you first joined? Obviously now it's a lot more self-sustainable, but were you shocked at all when you knew how things were when you first came in?
I know that it would be unbelievably difficult, because each and every season after relegation is difficult. It's always difficult when you have not really a playing philosophy, when you have changed the philosophy in the years before. I don't want to criticize anyone, but you got the feeling there was not really a philosophy. The only philosophy was, I want to be successful anyhow. So like not really values how we want to work. And if you want to implement this and you have a group of players who is perhaps a bit too old and more like on the way down the hill instead of up the hill, I knew it would be difficult. I knew we need to sell some players. But if I'm honest, that the financial pressure was that big, I didn't have the whole picture, if I'm honest. And I think even Stuart and some of our board members were surprised anyhow when it's more like we found out how big the pressure really was. So it was really like the question do or die anyhow. And without, for example, developing James Maddison and selling him for a record fee of the club, I'm not sure if the club would exist in this way. And
well, I can't remember who it was, but someone in the board, I remember them saying that in the last game of the season, I think James Maddison got injured. And it was a terrifying moment where actually...
Yes, I remember that.
The club, there was a real bit of danger there. If James Maddison was no longer a sellable asset, we were in a bit of trouble.
Yes, but I think it was more like a worry also like for our key people, because they try to keep always a bit the financial pressure away from me. It's not like they tell me, listen, then you need to develop the next 25 or 20 million pound player anyhow out of a player who's never played on this level. So they never do this. So of course they are hoping that I can do this and I can work on this, but they were never working in this way or something. And I also try to concentrate on what I can influence, and I just try to make the best out of my team and try to make the best players out of my players. And if I would have thought, okay, listen, if I can't produce 2 or 3 players, where we earn some double figures and the club won't exist, I would have be able to sleep anymore. So for that, I had to concentrate anyhow on my job and put this a little bit to the side and let some other people worry a bit more like about the financial side. And it was a tricky moment for the club. I knew this more or less. But thank God it paid out in the end. And right now the club is in a much better position.
And given everything you've said there about the philosophy of the club, what do you think is a realistic aim for Norwich fans to expect from the team over the next sort of few years? Obviously, fans want to see results now and they want to see the great times, but obviously, being a true football fan, it's not all about the highs, it's about the lows as well. But what would be a realistic aim for a Norwich City fan right now?
Yes, first of all, you have to say, as a football fan, you're never realistic, and that's also totally okay.
That's part of the beauty of it.
If you work in this business, you have to be greedy to achieve extraordinary things, and that's also what we want to achieve. Otherwise, we wouldn't have achieved the championship title 2 years ago. So that's totally allowed, and that's totally okay. I have, of course, to lead the club in a bit more realistic way. And like I mentioned, so in the last decades, the club was struggling in order to become an established member in the first on Premier League level, or really established member under the first 25 best clubs in this country. And this is what I want to achieve anyhow, because of course we have achieved sometimes to be a member of the Premier League table, but then after relegation sometimes we were struggling out of the playoff ranks anyhow. So that's why I labeled, okay, I want this club to be always playing on Premier League level, and if not, then at least in the top 6. So always to be in the under the best 25 or the best 26 clubs on this level. And we have achieved this 2 years ago. We have achieved this also in last season, because we played Premier League level. Hopefully this is also why I spoke so much about how important this season is. It would be great to achieve this again, to finish in the top 6, because it would have been the 3rd year in a row. And let's be honest, if we can again create something special and promote back, we would have also the 4th year in a row on this level. So it's the first time since a long period that we achieved this, and this was more or less like how I want us to keep going and to develop.
That sounds like a fulfilling aim to me, definitely. And finally, what is your lasting kind of feeling, if you had to sum up what Norwich City means to you and why it is so special? What's your thought on that?
It's a club for the people, a club for the community. It's not like someone pretends here more than he is. So it's more like that everyone got the feeling, okay, there's a special spirit within this club, but also a special spirit within the community, together with the people. So I think everyone realized that this club is much more important than any name. And like famous people even before said, you have to love the name on the shirt, but not like on the back. You have to love the badge anyhow, and this is quite important. You got the feeling. So everyone who has worked for this club has this feeling, so that this club is even bigger than any manager or head coach or sporting director or chairman or player. And I think everyone got the feeling, so this club is unbelievably important for the people. And this is why everyone really also feels really blessed and privileged to represent this club. And this makes this club so special.
That is a great note to end it on. Thank you so much, Daniel. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on our very first podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.